The stars looked different tonight. Jake Morrison stood on his porch, watching the red sunset fade behind the rolling hills of New Dakota. His wife, Mary, called from inside their small farmhouse. Their 2 kids needed help with homework. It was just another normal evening on their colony world. Jake had no idea that his peaceful life was about to end 3,000 light years away. Admiral Kexthul stood before the great council of the Zephyrian Empire. The massive alien looked like a cross between a spider and a shark. His 8 arms moved as he spoke to the other alien leaders gathered in the crystal chamber. The humans have spread to 12 worlds now, Admiral Kexthul said. His voice was cold and harsh. They build colonies like insects. They must be stopped before they become a problem. The other aliens nodded. They had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their technology was far ahead of anything the humans had. Their ships could travel faster than light. Their weapons could crack planets in half. They had never lost a war. Emperor Zixthil spoke from his throne. He was even bigger than the admiral. His skin was dark purple, and his eyes glowed like red stars. How many ships do the humans have? Less than 100. Admiral Kexthul replied. Small ships with weak weapons. They use old fusion drives and simple missiles. Their biggest ship is smaller than our smallest fighter. The emperor laughed. It sounded like metal scraping against stone. And how many ships do we have? Over 50,000, my lord. Our weakest ship could destroy their entire fleet. Then why are we even talking about this? Emperor Zixthul stood up from his throne. Send a message to the humans. Tell them to surrender or die. If they refuse, wipe them out. Back on New Dakota, Jake was fixing his fence when the emergency. Alarms started screaming. The sound came from speakers all over the colony. Jake dropped his hammer and ran toward town. Other colonists were doing the same thing. Everyone looked scared. The town hall was packed with people. Governor Peterson stood at the front, holding a communication device. His face was pale. I just got word from Earth Command, he said. The Zephyrian Empire has declared war on humanity. All outer colonies are ordered to evacuate immediately. The room exploded with noise. People were shouting and crying. Some were angry. Others were scared. Jake felt his heart sink. New Dakota was his home. He had spent 5 years building his farm. His kids had been born here. How much time do we have? Someone yelled. 3 days, Governor Peterson said. Maybe less. The Zephyrian fleet is already moving toward us. Jake rushed home to tell Mary. She was in the kitchen making dinner. When she saw his face, she knew something was wrong. We have to leave, Jake said. The aliens are coming to kill us. Mary sat down hard in her chair. What about the farm? What about everything we built? It doesn't matter now, Jake said. We have to keep our kids safe. For the next 2 days, the colony was chaos. People packed what they could carry. The evacuation ships were small and could only take the most important things. Jake watched his neighbors say goodbye to their homes. Some people cried. Others were angry. A few just looked empty. On the 3rd day, Jake saw something that gave him hope. A Earth Defense Force ship appeared in the sky. It was bigger than the evacuation ships, but still looked small compared to what was coming. The ship was called the Valiant. It was a destroyer with a crew of 200 people. Jake watched it take position above the colony. It looked brave, but also very alone. Inside the Valiant, Captain Lisa Hayes was reading the latest reports. The Zephyrian fleet was bigger than they had expected. 50 ships were heading toward New Dakota. Each one was more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Captain, said Lieutenant Danny Torres, the weapons officer, we're getting a message from Admiral Brooks on Earth. The message was short and simple. Show them what humans can do when cornered. Good luck, Lisa. Captain Hayes looked around the bridge. Her crew was young but skilled. They had trained for this moment for years. They knew the Valiant was different from other human ships. It carried technology that no one else had. Technology that might save them all. Ryan, she said to Chief Engineer Ryan Campbell, are the new systems ready? Yes, Captain, Ryan replied. But we've never tested them in real combat. We don't know if they'll work. Dr. Amy Richardson looked up from her science station. The theory is sound. The experiments on Earth were successful, but those were controlled. Tests, this is different. Captain Hayes nodded. She knew the risks. The Valiant carried humanity's most secret technology. If it failed, the ship and crew would die. If it worked, they might have a chance. Communications Officer Parker, she sighed. Send a message to the colony. Tell them to finish the evacuation. We'll hold the line as long as we can. Ben Parker sent the message. Below them, the last evacuation ships were taking off. Jake Morrison and his family were on one of them. Jake pressed his face against the window, watching the Valiant get smaller. As they flew away, the Valiant was alone now. Just one ship waiting for 50 enemy vessels. On paper, it was suicide. The Zephyrian ships were faster, stronger, and had better weapons. Any sane person would run, but Captain Hayes wasn't running. Neither was her crew. They were human, and humans had a reputation for doing impossible things when their backs were against the wall. Long-range sensors are picking up the enemy fleet, reported Navigator Sam Clark. They'll be here in 6 hours. Captain Hayes stood up from her command chair. All hands, this is the captain. In 6 hours, we're going to face the enemy. They think we're weak. They think we're easy prey. They're about to learn they're wrong. She paused and looked around the bridge. Every face was determined. We're not just fighting for New Dakota. We're fighting for every human colony. For Earth. For the right to exist in this galaxy. Today, we show them what happens when you threaten humanity. The crew cheered. It wasn't loud, but it was strong. They knew they might die today. But they also knew they would die fighting. 6 hours later, the Zephyrian fleet arrived. 50 massive ships that looked like metal monsters. They moved in perfect formation, confident and deadly. They had come to destroy a human colony and kill everyone there. Instead, they found the Valiant waiting for them. War-Commander Veltar looked at the human ship on his screen. It was so small compared to his fleet. He almost felt sorry for the humans. Almost. Open a channel, he ordered. Let's give them a chance to surrender before we destroy them. The message went out across space. Human vessel, this is War Commander. Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are outnumbered 50-1. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick. The response came back immediately. Captain Hayes' voice was calm and strong. This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the UED Valiant. You've declared war on humanity and threatened our people. We're giving you one chance to leave. Turn around now or face the consequences. War Commander Veltar couldn't believe what he was hearing. One small human ship was threatening his entire fleet. He started laughing. Soon, his entire bridge crew was laughing too. Humans, he said, shaking his head. They're even more stupid than we thought. All ships, attack formation. Let's end this quickly. The 50 Zephyrian ships moved into their battle formation. They surrounded the Valiant like wolves surrounding a rabbit. Their weapons powered up, ready to turn the human. Ship into scrap metal. Captain Hayes watched the enemy ships move. All hands, battle stations. This is what we trained for. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who ever lived. The Valiant systems came online. Deep in the ship's core, technology that shouldn't exist began to hum with power. The crew felt it in their bones. Something was about to happen. Something that would change everything. War Commander Valtar gave the order. Fire! 50 ships opened fire at once. Plasma beams and energy bolts filled space. Enough firepower to destroy a city flew toward the small human ship. The Valiant should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The ship began to glow with blue light. The enemy fire seemed to bend around it. Some of the plasma beams were absorbed completely. Others bounced back toward the Zephyrian ships. What's happening? War Commander. Valtar demanded. Why isn't it destroyed? His science officer's voice was shaking. Sir, I'm reading impossible energy signatures from the human ship. It's like they're bending the laws of physics. The Valiant suddenly moved. Not like a normal ship, but like something alive. It dodged between the Zephyrian vessels with impossible speed and grace. Then it fired back. The human weapons were different from anything the Zephyrians had seen. They didn't just destroy ships. They seemed to unmake them. One moment, a Zephyrian cruiser was there. The next moment, it was gone. Not exploded, not broken. Just gone. Impossible, War Commander Valtar whispered. This can't be happening. But it was happening. The Valiant was fighting 50 ships and winning. The humans had brought something to the battle that the Zephyrians had never seen before. Something that turned all their advantages into weaknesses. Tide of war was about to turn, and the galaxy would never be the same. War Commander Valtar watched in horror as his ships began to die. The human vessel moved through space like a ghost. It was there one moment, somewhere else the next. His weapons couldn't hit it. When they did hit it, nothing happened. The energy just disappeared. Report, he screamed at his crew. What's happening to our weapons? The science officer was shaking. Sir, the human ship is absorbing our plasma fire. It's using our own energy against us. This shouldn't be possible. 3 more Zephyrian ships vanished in flashes of blue light. They didn't explode. They didn't break apart. They just stopped existing. The crews, the weapons, the armor that could stop a star's fire, all gone in an instant. How many ships have we lost? War Commander Valtar asked. 15, sir. In less than 10 minutes. 15 ships. Each one had taken 20 years to build. Each one carried a crew of 1,000 warriors. All destroyed by a single human vessel that shouldn't have been able to hurt them. Inside the Valiant, Captain Hayes stood calmly on the bridge. Around her, the crew worked with smooth efficiency. They had trained for this moment, but the reality was more intense than any simulation. Danny, target their command ship, she said to Lieutenant Torres. Let's see how brave their commander is when we're shooting at him. Target locked, Captain, Danny replied. His fingers danced over the weapon controls. Firing quantum disruptor. The Valiant's main weapon fired. It didn't look like much, just a thin beam of blue light. But when it hit the Zephyrian command ship, the vessel's shield simply stopped working. The beam passed through the armor like it wasn't there. War Commander Valtar felt his ship shake. Damage report? Shield generators are offline, sir. The beam passed right through them. It's like they weren't even there. That's impossible. Our shields have never failed. Sir, I don't think their weapon destroys our shields. I think it makes them not exist. War Commander Valtar didn't understand what that meant. How could something make shields not exist? But he understood that his ship was now helpless. One more shot from the human vessel would kill him and his crew. All ships retreat formation, he ordered. We need to regroup and figure out what we're fighting. But when his ships tried to retreat, they found they couldn't. The Valiant had somehow locked on to their quantum signatures. Every time a Zephyrian ship tried to jump to faster-than-light speed, the jump failed. They were trapped. Dr. Amy Richardson watched the enemy ships struggle to escape. The quantum anchor is working perfectly, she reported. They can't jump to hyperspace while we're holding them. Good, Captain Hayes said. Now let's disable the rest of their fleet. Remember, we want survivors. Someone needs to take word back to their empire. The Valiant began hunting the remaining Zephyrian ships. It was like watching a wolf hunt sheep. The alien vessels were bigger and more powerful, but they couldn't touch the human ship. Their weapons were useless. Their armor meant nothing. Their speed was meaningless. Rayan Campbell monitored the ship's power systems. Captain, the reality manipulation drives are working better than we hoped. We're using their own attack energy to power our systems. The more they shoot at us, the stronger we get. And the quantum phase shifters? Captain Hayes asked. Working perfectly. We can exist in multiple dimensions at once. Their weapons are hitting us, but we're not entirely. Hear when they fire. Chief Engineer Campbell didn't try to explain how it worked. The science was too complex even for him. All he knew was that human scientists had found a way to bend the rules of reality itself. The Valiant could shift between dimensions, absorb energy from attacks, and make enemy weapons stop existing. Communication Officer Ben Parker was listening to the Zephyrian radio chatter. Captain, they're panicking. They're calling us demons. They say we've broken the laws of physics. Captain Hayes smiled. Maybe we have. Danny, disable their engines, but leave their communication systems working. I want them to be able to call for help. The Valiant moved through the enemy fleet like a shark through a school of fish. One by one, the Zephyrian ships were disabled. Their weapons were destroyed. Their engines were shut down. But their crews were left alive. War Commander Veltar watched his proud fleet become helpless. In 30 minutes, 50 of the Empire's best ships had been reduced to floating junk. And the human ship wasn't even damaged. Sir, his communication officer said, we're receiving a message from the human vessel. Captain Hayes' voice filled the Zephyrian bridge. War Commander Veltar, this is Captain Hayes. I'm leading 10 of your ships with enough power to return home. You're going to take a message back to your empire. What message? War Commander Veltar asked. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity is not as weak as they thought. Tell them that if they want war, they'll get more than they bargained for. You're letting us go? I'm letting some of you go. The rest of your ships will be destroyed if you don't leave immediately. You have 1 hour to collect your survivors and get out of human space. War Commander Veltar couldn't believe it. The humans had won a complete victory. They could have killed everyone. Instead, they were showing mercy. It was confusing. In Zephyrian culture, enemies were always destroyed completely. Why? He asked, why let us live? Because someone needs to tell your people what they're really fighting. We're not helpless. Pray, we're humans, and humans don't give up. The 10 surviving Zephyrian ships slowly gathered their survivors. They watched in fear as the Valiant destroyed the abandoned vessels. Each explosion was a reminder of how completely they had been defeated. Navigator Sam Clark watched the enemy ships prepare to leave. Should we follow them, Captain? No, Captain. Hayes said, let them go. They have a message to deliver. As the Zephyrian survivors jumped into hyperspace, Ben Parker intercepted their emergency transmissions. The aliens were broadcasting warnings across their empire. They described Valiant as a demon ship that could bend reality. They warned that humanity had weapons that made matter itself disappear. They're really scared, Ben reported. They're telling their high command that we're not human at all. They think we're something else pretending to be human. Dr. Amy Richardson looked up from her science station. In a way, they're right. What we did here shouldn't be possible. Our technology is beyond anything in the galaxy. Captain Hayes nodded. That's what makes us human. We find ways to do the impossible. The Valiant began moving toward Earth. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The Zephyrian Empire would not accept this defeat. They would send more ships, bigger ships, their entire fleet if necessary. But for now, humanity had won its first victory. One ship had defeated 50. The odds had been impossible, but humans had a long history of beating impossible odds. Deep in the Valiant's core, the reality manipulation drives powered down. The quantum phase shifters returned to standby mode. The ship looked like a normal human destroyer again. But everyone who had seen the battle knew better. "Annie," Captain Hayes said, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the new weapons. Work. Tell them we're going to need more ships like the Valiant." "Already done, Captain." "Admiral Brooks is requesting a full report." Captain Hayes thought about what to put in the report. How do you explain technology that shouldn't exist? How do you describe weapons that make enemy ships stop being real? How do you tell your superiors that you've just started a war with the most powerful empire in the galaxy? "Tell the Admiral that humanity is no longer hiding," she said finally. "Tell him the galaxy is about to learn what we're really capable." Oaf. The Valiant continued toward Earth, leaving behind the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet. The battle had lasted less than an hour, but it would be remembered for centuries. It was the day humanity announced itself to the galaxy, not as weak colonists, to be swept aside, but as a species that could make the impossible happen. War Commander Veltar's ship limped through hyperspace toward the Zephyrian home world. His crew was silent. They had all seen the same thing, but none of them could explain it. The humans had technology that violated every law of physics they knew. "Sir," his science officer said quietly, "I've been thinking about what we saw. I don't think the humans discovered new technology. I think they discovered new laws of physics." War Commander Veltar understood what that meant. If humans could manipulate reality itself, then every advantage the Empire had was meaningless. Ships, weapons, armor, none of it mattered if the enemy could simply make it not exist. "How many humans are there?" he asked. "Intelligence reports say about 50 billion across all their worlds. And if they can all do what that ship did?" The science officer was quiet for a long moment. "Then we're not fighting a war anymore, sir. We're fighting extinction." The message reached the Zephyrian home world 3 days later. Emperor Zixtel read the report in his throne room. At first, he thought it was a joke. Then he watched the combat recordings. 50 ships destroyed by one human vessel. Weapons that made matter disappear. Technology that bent the laws of physics. It was impossible, but the evidence was right in front of him. "Admiral Kexthil," the Emperor said, "assemble. The Great Armada. Every ship, every weapon, every warrior in the Empire." "My lord, surely that's not necessary. It was just one ship." "It was one ship that destroyed 50 of our best vessels. If the humans have more ships like that, we need to hit them with everything." 3 weeks after the battle at New Dakota, the Zephyrian Empire was in chaos. The news had spread to every corner of their territory. One human ship had destroyed 50 Imperial vessels. The Empire's best warriors were calling the humans demons. Who could break the laws of physics? Emperor Zixtel stood in his war room, looking at star charts that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian worlds. Blue dots marked human colonies. The blue dots were so few compared to the red ones, but now they looked threatening. "Show me the combat footage again," he ordered. The holographic display showed the battle once more. The Emperor watched his ships fire their most powerful weapons at the human vessel. The plasma beams that could melt through planetary armor simply disappeared when they hit the Valiant. Then the human ship fired back, and Zephyrian cruisers vanished like they had never existed. "How is this possible?" he asked Admiral Kexthul. Our scientists have been studying the recordings, my lord. They believe the humans have learned to manipulate quantum reality itself. They can exist in multiple dimensions at once. They can make our weapons miss by not being entirely in our reality when we fire. Emperor Zixthal felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, not for himself, but for his entire empire. What about their weapons? How do they make our ships disappear? The scientists think they use something called quantum dissolution. They don't destroy matter. They convince the universe that the matter was never there in the first place. The Emperor sat down heavily in his command chair. Are you telling me the humans can rewrite reality? In limited ways, yes. But my lord, they can't have many ships. With this technology, it must be experimental. That's why they only sent one ship to defend the colony. Admiral Kexthul was trying to sound confident, but Emperor Zixthal heard the doubt in his voice. If the humans could build one ship with reality-bending technology, they could build more. How many ships are in the Great Armada now? The Emperor asked. 10,000, my lord, every major vessel in the Empire. Dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, destroyers, fighters. The greatest fleet ever assembled. And you think that's enough? Admiral. Kexthal hesitated. My lord, even if the humans have a dozen ships like the Valiant, we outnumber them 1,000 to 1. Surely they can't fight an entire armada. The Emperor hoped he was right, but he remembered watching 50 ships die in less than an hour. If one human ship could do that, what could 10 do? Or 100? Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kevin Brooks was having his own problems. The Valiant had returned as a hero, but it had also revealed how unprepared humanity was for galactic war. They had exactly 12 ships with the new reality manipulation technology. The rest of their fleet was primitive compared to what the aliens had. How long before the other prototypes are ready? He asked Dr. Amy Richardson, who had been promoted to head of the secret weapons program. At least 6 months, sir. The quantum drives are incredibly complex. We can't mass-produce them like normal ship engines. Admiral Brooks looked at the intelligence reports. We might not have 6 months. Our spies tell us the aliens are assembling the largest fleet in galactic history, 10,000 ships. Dr. Richardson went pale. Sir, even with all 12 prototype ships, we can't fight 10,000 enemies. Then we'll have to find another way, Admiral Brooks said. What about the Valiant? Can it handle more than 50 ships? The Valiant performed better than expected at New Dakota. Captain Hayes pushed the reality drives to their absolute limit. But 10,000 ships? Dr. Richardson shook her head. The quantum strain would tear the ship apart. Admiral Brooks stood up and walked to the window. Below him, Earth cities stretched to the horizon. 50 billion people lived on this world. Billions more lived on the human colonies. All of them were depending on him to keep them safe. What if we don't fight them in space? He asked. Sir, the aliens expect us to meet them in open battle, ship against ship. What if we don't do what they expect? Dr. Richardson thought about it. The reality drives can do more than just bend space and time. In theory, they could manipulate any fundamental force in the universe. Gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear forces. Could they affect a star? Dr. Richardson's eyes went wide. Sir, you're not suggesting. I'm suggesting we think outside the box. The aliens have superior numbers and technology, but they're thinking like conventional warriors. They expect a conventional battle. Admiral Brooks turned back to face her. Humans don't fight conventional battles. We fight dirty. We use every advantage we can find. And sometimes we change the rules of the game entirely. Back on the Valiant, Captain Hayes was reviewing the ship's performance reports. The reality drives had worked perfectly, but they had also revealed new possibilities. The technology was more powerful than anyone had imagined. "Ryan," she said to Chief Engineer Campbell, "what's the maximum range on the quantum manipulators?" "We tested them at 50,000 kilometers during the battle. But theoretically, they could work at much greater distances." How much greater? Ryan thought about it. If we boosted the power output to maximum, maybe a few million kilometers. But that would be incredibly dangerous. We've never tested the drives at that level. Captain Hayes nodded. What about stellar distances? Could we affect something as far away as a star? Ryan went very quiet. Captain, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I'm thinking that we need to be ready for anything. The aliens are coming with 10,000 ships. We need options. Lieutenant Danny Torres looked up from his weapons station. Captain, if we could manipulate stellar matter, we could turn stars into weapons. We could make them go supernova. Or we could make them go out, Dr. Amy Richardson added. We could convince the universe that a star never existed. The bridge fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. The power to destroy stars was the power to destroy entire solar systems. It was the power of gods. Let's focus on survival first, Captain Hayes said. But start running theoretical calculations. If we have to fight 10,000 ships, we need every possible advantage. 2 months later, the Great Armada was ready. 10,000 ships from 12 different alien species. The combined firepower could destroy 100 worlds. Emperor Zixthul himself would command the fleet from his personal flagship, the Eternal. Dominion. The flagship was the size of a small moon. It carried 1 million warriors and enough weapons to crack a planet. Nothing in the galaxy could stand against it. Nothing except, perhaps, the impossible human technology. All ships report ready? My lord, Admiral Kexthul announced. Emperor Zixthul looked at the tactical display. His armada filled space for millions of kilometers. It was the most powerful force ever assembled. Surely it was enough to defeat a few dozen human ships. Set course for the human home world, he ordered. We end this war where it began. The Great Armada jumped into hyperspace. 10,000 ships moving together toward Earth. The journey would take 2 weeks. When they arrived, they would either destroy humanity or be destroyed by it. On Earth, Admiral Brooks watched the alien fleet approach. Long-range sensors had detected the massive armada while it was still days away. The size of it was terrifying. Humanity had never faced anything like it. All prototype ships are ready, sir, reported Captain Hayes via communication link. The entire fleet is at your disposal. 12 ships against 10,000. The odds were impossible. But Admiral Brooks had a plan. It was desperate and dangerous, but it was the only chance they had. Lisa, he said to Captain Hayes, I need you to take the Valiant to the edge of the solar system. Wait for my signal. What's the signal, sir? You'll know it when you see it? And Lisa? If this plan works, the galaxy will never be the same. If it fails, at least we'll go down fighting. The Valiant and the 11 other prototype ships took position at the edge of the solar system. They looked tiny compared to the approaching armada, but they carried technology that could bend reality itself. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the alien fleet grow larger on the sensors. In a few hours, the battle would begin. The fate of humanity would be decided. All hands, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is the captain. In a few hours, we face the greatest challenge in human history. We are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The enemy has more ships, more weapons, more experience. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. But we have something they don't. We have the human spirit. We have the refusal to give up. And we have technology that can make the impossible happen. The crew members nodded. They were scared, but they were ready. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Remember, Captain Hayes continued, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who ever lived. We're fighting for the right to exist in this galaxy. We're fighting for the future of our species. The Great Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 10,000 ships in perfect formation, their weapons powered up, their crews ready for battle. They expected to find a desperate human fleet waiting for them. Instead, they found something else entirely. 12 small ships that glowed with blue. Light. Ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Ships that bent space and time around them like living things. Emperor Zixthol looked at the human fleet on his tactical display. That's it? 12 ships? Yes. The Great Armada spread across space like a metal storm. 10,000 ships in perfect formation, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Emperor Zixthol stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the 12 human ships that dared to challenge his entire empire. They're so small, he said to Admiral Kexthul. How can 12 ships think they can fight 10,000? Perhaps they're planning to surrender, my lord, the admiral suggested, but his voice lacked confidence. After what happened at New Dakota, no one was sure what the humans were capable of. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the massive alien fleet approach. The sensors showed so many ships that they looked like a swarm of angry insects. Each one was bigger and more powerful than anything humanity had built before the prototype ships. Danny, she said to Lieutenant Torres, are you getting readings? On their flagship? Yes, Captain. It's enormous. The size of a small moon. I'm reading over 1 million life signs on board. Dr. Amy Richardson looked up from her science station. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildup across their entire fleet. They're preparing to fire everything they have. Then we better get ready too, Captain Hayes replied. All ships, this is the Valiant. Prepare to activate reality drives on my mark. The 12 human ships began to glow with blue light. Space around them started to bend and twist. They were no longer entirely in normal reality. They existed in multiple dimensions at once, making them almost impossible to target. Emperor Zixthol watched the human ships change. What are they doing? They're entering quantum flux, my lord. They're becoming partially dimensional. Our weapons will have trouble hitting them. Then we'll fire so many weapons that some of them have to hit, the Emperor declared. All ships, maximum firepower. Destroy those human vessels. 10,000 ships fired at once. The combined energy was enough to destroy a planet. Plasma beams, particle cannons, quantum torpedoes. Every weapon in the Zephyrian arsenal unleashed its fury on the 12 human ships. The space around the human fleet exploded in light and energy. When the glow faded, the aliens expected to see nothing but debris. Instead, the 12 human ships were still there, glowing brighter than before. Impossible, Emperor Zixthol whispered. Nothing could survive that barrage. Captain Hayes smiled as the energy readings on her ship climbed higher. Ryan, how are the power levels? Better than ever, Captain, Chief Engineer Campbell replied. We just absorbed enough energy to power Earth for a year. The reality drives are running at 200% efficiency. Good. Now let's give them a demonstration of what human technology can really do. The Valiant fired a single quantum beam at the nearest alien ship. The beam passed through the vessel's shields like they were made of paper. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been built in the first place. One down, Lieutenant Torres announced. 9,999 to go. But Captain Hayes had a different plan. All ships form up on the Valiant. We're going to try something that's never been tested before. The 12 human ships moved into a perfect circle formation. Their reality drives synchronized, creating a field of quantum energy that stretched across millions of kilometers. Space itself began to ripple around them. Dr. Richardson monitored the quantum field. Captain, the dimensional matrix is stable. We are ready to attempt the stellar manipulation. Stellar manipulation? Admiral Kexthul had intercepted the human communication. What do they mean by stellar manipulation? Emperor Zixthul looked at the tactical display. The human ships were doing something to space itself. Reality was bending around them in ways that hurt to look at. Sir, the science officer on the flagship reported, they're creating a quantum tunnel. It's aimed at our home star. Our home star? That's impossible. It's hundreds of light years away. Distance doesn't matter in quantum space, my lord. There, reaching across the galaxy. Captain Hayes took a deep breath. What they were about to attempt had only been theoretical until now. If it worked, they would save Earth. If it failed, the quantum backlash would destroy all 12 ships. All ships engage stellar manipulation protocol, she ordered. The 12 human ships poured their combined power into the quantum tunnel. Across the galaxy, near the Zephyrian home world, space began to twist. The aliens' home star, a massive red giant that had burned for billions of years, suddenly flickered. Report! Emperor Zixthul screamed at his science officer. My lord, something is affecting our sun. The quantum signature is changing. The nuclear fusion process is being altered. The Emperor watched in horror as readings from his home system arrived through quantum communication. The star that warmed his world was being manipulated by humans who were hundreds of light years away. They can't do this, he said. It's impossible to affect a star from such a distance. They're doing it anyway, my lord. Back at Earth, Captain. Hayes felt the strain of maintaining the quantum tunnel. The power requirements were enormous. Her crew was pushing the reality drives beyond their designed limits. Amy, she said to Dr. Richardson, can we maintain this? For a few more minutes. But much longer, and the quantum strain will tear our ships apart. That's all we need, Captain Hayes said. She opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Emperor Zixthul, this is Captain Lisa Hayes. We need to talk. The Emperor's voice came back immediately. What are you doing to our star? We're showing you what human technology can really do. Right now, we're holding your sun in quantum stasis. We can make it go supernova, or we can make it simply stop existing. The choice is yours. Emperor Zixthul felt his world crumble around him. These humans could destroy his entire home system without even being there. They were manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe itself. What do you want? He asked. We want you to leave human space and never come back. We want a peace treaty that guarantees humanity's right to exist. And we want you to spread the word throughout the galaxy that humans are not to be threatened. And if we refuse? Captain Hayes' voice was cold and certain. Then your home star becomes a supernova in the next 60 seconds. Your home world and everything on it will be destroyed. Is your pride worth the lives of 50 billion Zephyrians? The Emperor looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with fear in their eyes. They had families on the home world. Children, parents, lovers. All of them would die if the humans carried out their threat. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice shook. You wouldn't destroy an entire world. We're human, Captain Hayes replied. We do whatever it takes to protect our people. We gave you a chance to leave our colonies alone. You chose war instead. Now you get to live with the consequences. Admiral Kexthul stepped forward. My lord, perhaps we should consider their terms. We cannot fight enemies who can destroy stars. Emperor Zixthul closed his eyes. 3,000 years of galactic dominance were ending. His empire, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, was being defeated by a species that had only recently learned to travel between stars. "How do I know you won't destroy our star anyway?" he asked. "Because that's not who we are," Captain Hayes said. "We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to conquer other worlds. We just want to be left alone to live our lives in peace." The Emperor opened his eyes and looked at the tactical display. 10,000 ships against 12. His forces could still win if they were willing to sacrifice everything. But what would be the point? Even if they destroyed these 12 human ships, there would be others. And the humans had already proven they could reach across the galaxy to destroy worlds. "All ships," he said quietly, "stand down, lower weapons." "My lord?" Admiral Kexthul couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You heard me. Stand down." The Emperor opened a communication channel to Captain Hayes. "We accept your terms. We will withdraw from human space and establish a peace treaty. But I need your word that you will release our star." "You have it," Captain Hayes said. "As soon as your ships leave our solar system, we'll end the quantum manipulation." It took 6 hours for the Great Armada to power down their weapons and begin their retreat. 10,000 ships that had come to destroy humanity were leaving in defeat. Not a single shot had been fired at the human fleet dot as the last alien ship jumped to hyperspace. Captain Hayes gave the order to end the stellar manipulation. Across the galaxy, the Zephyrian home star returned to normal. The crisis was over. "All ships, stand down from quantum alert," she announced. "Mission accomplished." On Earth, Admiral Brooks watched the alien fleet disappear from his sensors. Humanity had faced extinction and somehow turned it into victory. 12 ships had defeated 10,000 through sheer audacity and impossible technology. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're getting messages from across the galaxy. Other species want to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. They're calling us the reality benders." Admiral Brooks smiled. "Inform them that humanity is open to peaceful contact. But make sure they understand the rules. We don't start fights, but we finish them." Back on the Valiant, Captain Hayes sat in her command chair, feeling exhausted but victorious. Her crew had pushed the reality drives to their absolute limits. They had reached across space to threaten an entire star system. They had forced the galaxy's greatest empire to surrender without fur. 6 months after the Great Armada's defeat, the galaxy was a different place. News of humanity's victory had spread to every corner of known space. The species that could manipulate stars and bend reality itself was no longer a secret. Valiant, Captain Hayes was reading reports from across the galaxy. Dozens of alien species wanted to establish trade relations with humanity. Others were asking for protection from their enemies. A few were offering to share technology in exchange for human friendship. "It's amazing how popular we've become," she said to Dr. Amy Richardson. "Fear has a way of making people friendly," Amy replied. "Half the galaxy thinks we're gods. The other half thinks we're demons. Either way, they don't want to fight us." Chief Engineer Ryan Campbell looked up from his station. "Captain, we're getting another request for a diplomatic meeting. This time from the Stellar Council. They want humanity to join as a permanent member." The Stellar Council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a united government. Made up of the oldest and most powerful species, it had existed for over 5,000 years. Humanity had only been in space for a few decades, but they were being invited to join as equals. "What does Earth Command say?" Captain Hayes asked. "Admiral Brooks is considering it, but he wants assurance that humanity won't be pressured into conflicts we didn't start." Captain Hayes nodded. The galaxy was full of old rivalries and ancient wars. Humanity didn't want to get dragged into fights that had nothing to do with them. Lieutenant Danny Torres was monitoring long-range communications. "Captain, I'm picking up some interesting chatter. It seems like several species are trying to reverse engineer our technology." Any success? None at all. They can't even figure out how our quantum drives work, let alone copy them. Dr. Richardson smiled. The reality manipulation technology is based on principles that most species never discover. Even if they had our blueprints, they'd need to completely rewrite their understanding of physics. The Valiant was heading toward the Centauri system for a diplomatic meeting with the Aquarian Federation. The Aquarians were an ancient species known for their wisdom and peaceful nature. They had specifically requested to meet with the humans, who had defeated the Zephyrian Empire. As they approached Centauri Prime, Captain Hayes was surprised by what she saw. The Aquarian homeworld was beautiful, covered in vast oceans and floating cities. But what caught her attention were the defensive installations around the planet. Those are some serious weapons, Lieutenant Torres observed. Energy cannons, shield generators, missile platforms. For a peaceful species, they're well armed. Navigator Sam Clark checked his sensors. Captain, I'm reading over 200 ships in orbit. They're not threatening us, but they're definitely showing off their military strength. Ambassador Telenox of the Aquarian Federation met them at the space station, orbiting Centauri Prime. He was tall and blue-skinned, with large eyes that seemed to see everything. When he spoke, his voice had a musical quality. Welcome, Captain. Hayes, he said. We are honored to meet the humans who changed the balance of power in our galaxy. Thank you, Ambassador. We're looking forward to establishing peaceful relations with your people. Ambassador Telenox led them to a conference room with a view of his home world. Captain, may I speak freely about why we requested this meeting? Of course. The Aquarian Federation has existed for 8,000 years. We have survived by being strong enough to defend ourselves, but wise enough to avoid unnecessary conflicts. You understand the importance of balance. Captain Hayes waited for him to continue. Your victory over the Zephyrian Empire has upset that balance. Some species are terrified of humanity. Others see you as potential allies against their enemies. A few are plotting to acquire your technology by any means necessary. And what do the Aquarians think? Ambassador Telenox was quiet for a moment. We think humanity is young and powerful, which makes you dangerous. But we also think you might be exactly what the galaxy needs. How so? The Zephyrian Empire ruled through fear. They conquered weaker species and enslaved entire worlds. For 3,000 years, they were the dominant power, and no one could challenge them. He gestured toward the window, where his whole world turned slowly in space. We never challenged them because we couldn't win. Oh, we could have hurt them badly, but they would have destroyed us in the end. So we stayed neutral and tried to protect what we could. But now things are different, Captain Hayes said. Now there's a species that can make the Zephyrians retreat without firing a shot. A species that can threaten to destroy stars from across the galaxy. That changes everything. Doctor. Richardson leaned forward. Ambassador, are you asking us to become the galaxy's police force? Not exactly. We're asking you to be what the Zephyrians never were. A dominant power that uses strength to protect rather than conquer. Captain Hayes thought about it. That's a lot of responsibility for a species that just learned to travel between stars. Perhaps. But responsibility often finds those who are capable of handling it, whether they want it or not. The meeting continued for several hours. Ambassador Telenox explained the complex politics of the galaxy. There were over 300 known species, divided into dozens of alliances and federations. Old enemies, recent wars, territorial disputes that had lasted for centuries. The Zephyrians kept order through fear, he said. They didn't care about justice or fairness, only obedience. But without them, some species are starting to settle old scores. There have been 3 wars started just since your victory at Earth. Lieutenant. Torres had been listening quietly. Are you saying the galaxy was more peaceful under the Zephyrians? In a way, yes. Fear of their retaliation kept most conflicts small. Now that fear is gone, some species think they can get away with anything. Until they run into us, Captain Hayes said. Exactly. Which is why we need to know what humanity plans to do with its power. Captain Hayes looked out at Centauri Prime. The Aquarians had built a beautiful civilization, but they had done it under the shadow of Zephyrian dominance. Now that shadow was gone, and they were asking humanity to take its place. We don't want to rule the galaxy, she said finally. We never did. We just wanted to be left alone to live our lives. But isolation isn't an option anymore, Ambassador Telenox said. Your technology is too powerful to ignore. Every species in the galaxy will either want to be your friend or your enemy. There's no middle ground, Dr. Richardson spoke up. What? If we shared our technology? Made it available to peaceful species? Impossible, the ambassador replied immediately. Even if you wanted to, most species couldn't understand it. And those who could would use it to dominate their neighbors. You'd be trading one empire for dozens of smaller ones. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Earth. Admiral Brooks appeared on the holographic display, his face grim. Lisa, we have a problem. The Krellian hegemony has just invaded 3 Federation worlds. They're claiming that humanity's victory over the Zephyrians means the old treaties are void. Captain Hayes felt her heart sink. How bad is it? Bad. They're enslaving entire populations. The Federation is asking for our help, but if we intervene, we'll be taking sides in a galactic war. Ambassador Telenox nodded sadly. It begins. The first test of humanity's new role in the galaxy. Captain Hayes closed the communication and turned to the ambassador. What do you recommend? Stop them. Show the galaxy that humanity's power comes with responsibility. Prove that you're different from the Zephyrians. And if we don't, then every aggressive species in the galaxy will decide that might makes. Right. There will be wars everywhere, and millions will die. Captain Hayes felt the weight of the galaxy settling on her shoulders. Humanity had gained incredible power, but with that power came impossible choices. How many ships does the Krellian hegemony have? She asked. About 500. Not as many as the Zephyrians, but still a formidable fleet. And they're currently attacking 3 Federation worlds? Yes, they expect an easy victory because the Federation is weak without Zephyrian protection. Captain Hayes made her decision. Amy, contact the other prototype ships. Tell them to meet us at the Krellian border. Captain, Dr. Richardson said, are you sure about this? If we fight the Krellians, we'll be announcing to the galaxy that humanity is willing to use force to maintain order. We already announced that when we threatened to destroy the Zephyrian sun, Captain Hayes replied. Now we have to follow through on our responsibilities. Ambassador Telenox looked relieved. Captain, the Aquarian Federation will support you in this. We've been waiting 8,000 years for someone to stand up for what's right, instead of what's profitable. 3 days later, the Valiant and 8 other human ships arrived at the Krellian Federation border. The Krellian fleet was in the middle of bombarding a Federation colony world. Refugee ships were fleeing the planet as Krellian troops landed. To capture the survivors, Captain Hayes opened a communication channel to the Krellian command ship. This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to cease your attack immediately and withdraw your forces. The response came from Admiral Vuskar, the Krellian fleet commander. His species looked like giant lizards, with metal implants covering half their bodies. Human, this does not concern you. The Federation is weak. We